Hello, my CNC brother or sister. I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, the company that provides you with your CNC router bits. In this video, we are going to talk about the keyhole bit and how to set it up. Now, what is a keyhole bit and why would you want one? Well, you're going to be making projects on your CNC router, and likely you're going to be making quite a few signs like this Home Sweet Home sign. This is something that somebody is going to be hanging up in their house or outside their house, and we need to come up with a way for them to hang it. And that's where we come up with the keyhole. Now, the keyhole is going to create that slot that you see on the back of things where you have that little round circle and a little like sideways slot attached to that circle where you slip the project over a screw and slide it sideways or up and down, and the project will stay on the wall. So I'm going to teach you how to set up a keyhole, set it up on your project, and then how to set it up in the design software, and then how to cut it. Now the thing with a keyhole bit is it is very quick and fast. It's almost not worth the setup time. But that's the way you set up a project and cut the keyhole, and you want to do it with your CNC machine. So first, let's talk about the keyhole bit itself, and then we'll get into this project here. We'll have to set it up on our long mill CNC router, and then we'll zero it out and cut the hole, and then we'll hang it up on the wall. Now this is what a keyhole bit looks like. You see we got the IDC Woodcraft logo on there because it's an IDC Woodcraft designed keyhole bit. Keyhole bits, first of all, are two flute bits traditionally. So two flute, it has two cutting blades on it. There's one here, and then there's one right here. And they will do the cutting. Now, it's what we call a center cutting bit, which means the cutting blade comes all the way into the center on both sides of the flute, because it is a plunge bit. It'll plunge down into the material and then it will cut across. So it is going to cut not only the slot for the screw head that is going to be sitting inside the project, but it's also going to cut the little slot above the screw head, or a T-shaped slot. You can see here on this bit, there is a grind that goes all the way up here. So here's the flute right there, and these are the cutting edges right there. And so what we're going to do is we are going to plunge down into the wood about that far, and then the bit will start to move across and make its cut in a T-shaped type of fashion, and then it'll come back and it'll pull out, and that's it with the operation. So it's doing two diameter cuts at the same time, and that's what a keyhole bit is all about. So we're going to get into the setup on this project, the Home Sweet Home project. And if you're interested in getting a keyhole bit, there will be a link down below in the description where you can get that from IDC Woodcraft. So let's go set up this Home Sweet Home project. All right, in order to just quickly put this project down, we don't need to have hard clamping on this because the router bit's not going to exhibit a lot of force or put a lot of force on the project for any length of time. So we're going to use the CA glue hold down method. The Starbond brand is what I recommend, and I have a link down below in the description where you can get that. All right, so the way we do this with this stuff is work with painter's tape, the accelerator spray, the Starbond glue, which basically is super glue, and I use the thin version of it, and we'll just use a little scraper. And we just put a couple pieces of tape on here. You'll notice on the spoil board here, I have a grid right here, and there it's a 2x2 grid, and I'm just going to place my project up on the spoil board, align my grid at a certain point where I can pretty much eyeball it on the other side as well along the grid, and we are ready to rock and roll. So we're going to put two strips of tape on this project, and there, and one over here. One right over here. This is so fast. I love the CA glue method. There's lots of different ways to hold projects down. You can use the CA glue method. You can use hard clamps. You can use a vacuum table. You can even screw or nail the material down. Yes, people do that. Screwing and nailing is about the most effective way of making sure a part is super secure. It'll never move until you take the screw back out. And then we just match it up on the table itself, just like that, and over here. And I just need to find the right grid line here, and we're just going to put that over there on that one. You burn through a lot of painter's tape when you're doing this. If my tape wants to separate, there we go. And 1, 2, 3, and we're done. So the first thing I gotta really make sure of is I am set up on the right side of the project. This is the top of the project up here. That's where I want my keyhole slot to be at. So that part I'm gonna make up at the top end of the project. So we just have to make sure that I set it down appropriately. So I'm just gonna put it like this. And when I put this down, it's just gonna go down just like that. So what we do is we take the super glue and we run a bead on the tape, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's very simple, very short, very quick. And then we take our accelerator spray, very quickly, just give a quick dash right across the tape. Accelerator, it evaporates pretty quickly. And then we're just going to line this up on the tape. And once I have a good line up on it, I'm going to set it down, give a quick push. It's a little cool in the shop right now, so we need to take a little bit more time on this. But usually, if it's warm, this glue will set in about 3 seconds. So we are all set up here, and we're ready to go. So now I just have to determine where exactly I'm going to put this keyhole at. So we're going to mark the center of this board at some height up here. Remember, this is the top of the project. So I'm going to just find the width, and this is 23 inches from this outer edge to this outer edge. And I'll just put the keyhole somewhere in here. It doesn't really matter exactly where. I'm not being critical. So I'm going to mark it with the IDC Woodcraft pen. And we're at 23 inches, so that's 11 and a half, right? 22 and yep, 11 and a half. I'm just going to go right here at 11 and a half and just put a little tick mark right there. This is where the center line of that keyhole is going to be, and it is going to go this way. So it'll be 1.5 inches wide. I'll come in on this side with the keyhole bit. It's going to plunge down here, come across over there, and then come back and come on out. The next thing I got to do is design this in the software. But first I'm just going to set the machine up. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the keyhole bit into the router. And I want to show you a little cool device that many CNC creators don't know about. It's something called a muscle chuck. So the muscle chuck is technically a super fast, quick way to change your CNC router bits. If you have a Makita trim router, like this right here, then you know that you're always using 2 wrenches, and it's kind of a 3-handed job as you're holding the bit in place, and you got to hold the little red button, and then you're also trying to turn the nut and hold the spindle in place. But with this, it's super fast. You have an Allen wrench, and simply get your Allen wrench into the screw, and once you got it in, put your router bit in, tighten it down, and you are ready to go, which is so fast. So if you want to look into the muscle chuck, they are stocked at IDC Woodcraft. I'll put a link down below in the description if you want to check it out. So now I have the router bit pretty much centered over the tick mark. Now you see it's not exact on the side to side, which doesn't really matter in this case. And here it's a little bit off there as well. That doesn't really matter because we are doing a side-to-side cut, and we just need to level that sign back and forth when we hang it on the wall. So I'm not really concerned with being off just a little bit. All right, now we have to set our Z height with the touch plate. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to put that plate under the bit, make sure we have about 1/4 of an inch left, and simply start the touch cycle just like that. And as the bit comes down, it is zeroing it out on the machine. And that's it. The router bit is now ready to go. We just have to do a quick design, super fast design in our Vectric software, and then we can run the program, cut our slot. Okay, so we're going to get into the Vectric design software, which is what I teach on this channel, and the software that I recommend for your designing of your CNC projects. The one thing when you're creating your design in your software is setting your job size. Like this board right here is 24 by 14, but in the case of doing this keyhole slot, it doesn't matter whatsoever. I'm going to create a 4" by 4" piece of material in the Vectric software, because that's all I need to work on. Remember, we're doing a 1.5 inch wide slot, and we're based off the center of that little tick mark. So that's the center of our project. So we're going to get in the Vectric software, we're going to set it up real quick, write the code program, or write the G code for it, run it over to our control software, which is GSender, and cut it out on the router. So let's get into the Vectric and do this. So in the Vectric software, we're simply going to come up, create a project, and I'm going to set the size to 4" by 4", and that's all I need, except we want to set up our project on the center of the job. So our XY datum is going to be on the center. So you see in the XY datum here, we have the little checkbox in the lower left corner. We want to bring that to the center of the project, and you'll see now in the whole screen we are working off the center. So we're going to click OK, and we are ready to go. So now all we have to do is create a line that is 1.5 inch wide based on center, and it's super easy. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to create a line using Polyline, which is up in the Create Vectors area, the straight line function. Select that, and I'm going to click anywhere right there. So we are starting a line. Now I'm going to come over to the right, and I'm going to type in the keyboard and simply type in 1.5, enter. Now we have a 1.5 long line. Now here's the magic trick about this whole thing, is we're going to double that line right back over itself to that start point. So simply take this line, and I'm going to come right back to that start point, and I'm going to click again, and now you see nothing else is happening. It has drawn a line across like that and another line right over top of it, and so that means that the start point is right here, it goes over here, it's going to come back out when it writes the program, and that's what the router bit's going to do. But we always want to double check this first when we do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line and simply center it up using the Align Selected Objects tool. Select that, and the very top we're going to click the center button like that. And now if you can see in the project, the line has moved to the center point. So that means at this point right here in the middle where the two axis lines come together is that little tick mark that we've just created. So we're going to close that and create our toolpath. So we want to come over to the toolpath area, and we are going to do a profile cut. So we select profile cut, and the first thing we want to remember is we're going to do this on the line. So we're simply straight coming down to whether it's outside the line, inside the line, or on the line, and making sure we're selected on the line. Now we're going to select our router bit. So select that, open up the library, and we're going to find the IDC Woodcraft keyhole bit, which is right there, the 3/8 keyhole bit. Select that. Now there's something I want you to pay attention to on this with keyhole bits. Keyhole bits are designed to plunge all the way down into that hole and move over. It has a specific depth of cut. Now, if you set up a keyhole bit in your design software and you don't set this up right, then what's going to happen is it's going to come in part way, and like the depth of cut, it'll come in part way, maybe 1/8 of an inch, start to cut across, then it'll go down another 1/8 of an inch, cut across, and another 1/8 of an inch, and you don't have a slot a T-slot or a keyhole slot, you have a regular slot. So we have to set this right on the keyhole bit. So as we get back into the software, we have this number for the keyhole bit, and this is really important, the pass depth. It says 0.375. We have to pay attention to that number. That's the depth for this particular bit that we are going to set. And do not change these numbers. So I'm going to click select because that's the bit that I want. And the first thing we're going to do is come up and set our depth of cut to 0.375. Now what that's going to do is the router bit, since its pass depth is 0.375 and we've set the depth, it's going to come all the way down to 0.375. In other words, it's going to come past that wide part of the bit, and the narrow part of the bit will be creating that thinner slot in the project, while the wide part of the bit is creating the clearance for the screw head down inside the project. So now that we've got that set up in the software, you can see our depth of cut is 0.375, and we're confirming that our start depth is 0.0. We are all set because we're going to go with the feeds and speeds that are in there. And one of the things you always want to do is name your projects accordingly so you know exactly what they are. So we're going to say Keyhole Home Suite Home is the name we're going to give it. And did I spell it right? I did spell it right. I'm going to calculate, and now we can just double check this, but you can see that on the Vectric software we have this red line here. That's our start position for the router bit, and then it's going to move or wrap it down to position. And you see this kind of greenish line here. There's actually two lines right here. There's a cyan blue line and a green line. And what that's telling me is that's the entrance of the router bit. It's going to come down it's going to come down in a plunge, and then it will go across this blue line, and then it is going to move back and pull out. And that's exactly what we want that router bit to do. So we are good to go with that. I'm going to save the toolpath. Click Save Toolpath. And we're simply going to make sure that the toolpath is selected with the checkbox right there, and click Save Toolpaths. And it's going to save to wherever we tell it to. I'm going to save it in the downloads, and it has already given me the name of the file right there, which is the G-code file, Keyhole Home Sweet Home. I'm going to save that. We will switch over to G-Sender and load that file right now. All right, so we have saved the toolpath, and we're now getting it into the G-Sender software. There it is. So now in the G-Sender we have our line right there. We are ready to rock and roll on this. All we have to do is simply turn on the CNC router and cut. So let's do that. All right, so now we're just gonna get the hearing protection on, start the machine, and rock and roll. So let's do this. Come on in. Go. Now take a look at this. So now our screw will slide in right here, and it'll go across. This is our hang point right there, our balance point. We're ready to go. That's the funny thing about the keyhole bit. That process is so fast. 95% of your time is spent just getting the project set up and ready to go. And now all we have to do with the muscle chuck, which is so stinking awesome, is loosen that nut and the screw and took that bit out, and we'll just put it back in its holder. The 3/8 keyhole cutter from IDC Woodcraft right there. All right. There it is. So now it's on the wall. It can't come off the wall, and all I have to do is balance it, and we are ready to go with our home sweet home in my shop. Remember the keyhole slot, it's very quick, very easy. You can get the database from IDC Woodcraft. I'll put a link for that down in the description, or just go to idcwoodcraft.com. And the keyhole bit, you can get that from IDC Woodcraft as well. Just be sure to check out the description down below. I will even put the G-code, the basic format of the G-code, down in the description, so you can copy that and just load it up in your machine. But you always need to make sure you have the first information that's in the G-code files that you create already. So I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft. Have a great day, better tomorrow, and happy CNCing. IDCwoodcraft.com